You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
Why do 4 out of 5 businesses fail? Surely not that many good ideas turn bad, right? Well, I believe that that's true. Those good ideas are still good ideas, but these business owners were missing something really important in their business, which is what's led them to having a business that they had to close down or shut down. So today's episode, we're talking all about what that ingredient is. What is the thing that has been missing? How do you diagnose it? How do you realize what you need to do to avoid it so that you don't end up being one of those statistics? Stay tuned. Today's episode is an absolute cracker.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and in my 23 years of business and marketing, I've built many brands to become multi-billion-dollar companies. And just in the last 10 years, I've built 2 online businesses of my own from my dining room table with 2 little babies running around at my feet. I've made it my mission to inspire you to get out of your own way and become the successful business owner who's living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. This is She's the Business podcast, made by women for women. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
I'm so thrilled to bring you this interview today with my special guest, Jenn Donovan. She's a fellow business coach and marketer, but she started out as a property law specialist, and 15 years ago, she made the choice to start her own business in retail. Since then, she pivoted again and focused in on where her true passion lies, which is with social media and marketing. She has been coaching small businesses and mentoring them for more than the last 5 years. She's from a small town in country Australia and has a bit of a soft spot for rural businesses. She's a podcast host and author with the Small Business Made Simple podcast and Stories from the Bush podcast. So she knows a thing or two about helping businesses to find easier success. It's all about making it simple. And today she's going to share with us her insights and knowledge on, what really is behind those businesses. Then 4 out of 5 businesses fail. What a huge statistic. And what is it that she's discovered, that she's found is the difference between those who thrive and those who don't. So please stay tuned. I'm about to play the episode for you. Okay, so I'm here with Jenn Donovan, who is a fellow marketing and business coach. We have a very similar background, and I always love connecting with Jenn. We've kind of been in the business world, I think, for a little while now. We've known each other for years. We always follow what each other are doing on social media and things, and then we connect for some awesome chats like we have coming up today. So thank you for joining me, Jenn. I'm really pleased to have you on the podcast.
Look, I'm really excited to be on the podcast and have another chat with you. There's nothing more I love in my day than talking marketing with another marketer.
I know we could talk for hours, but we won't. Don't worry.
We'll try not to.
We will keep this one short. So, Jenn, do you want to tell the listeners just a little bit about your business and who you serve and what you do in the marketing business sphere? Because that is quite broad, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm a marketing business coach. I live in the Riverina of New South Wales, so down the bottom near the border of Victoria. So one of the things that I love to do, which I'm getting to do a lot more now, the pandemic has kind of gone away. I don't know whether I can say it's gone away, but I love to get out and do workshops and speak to people face to face. And I guess my whole business is built on this premise of make marketing a priority. Stop making marketing your sometimes activity or when I get time activity, because if you want to grow, you've just got to be able to market yourself and be as good at marketing yourself as you are at whatever it is that you do. So I also have a podcast, and if you're interested in going back and having a listen to more of us, I think Jessica was on episode 72. So you could always pop over there and have another listen to our chat going the other way.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll hook that up in the show notes so that you can find it nice and easily. But yes, that's so good. And I love that. Make marketing a priority. So important. And it doesn't have to feel like a chore, does it? Because it's not about it taking up all your time or it being something that's, churning through hours and hours of your day and feeling hard and difficult. It's just that if you take that time to focus on it and really get clear on what it is that you're doing, it can be easy. And it's just so effective, as in you can't really have a business and not be doing marketing. So if you're not doing it, then maybe you're just riding the wave of luck at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at your industry, no matter what your industry is, if you look at the people who are doing well in your industry, you'll often find that they're making marketing fun. Like it becomes something they just do and they look like they're having fun. They're either really good actors or they are actually, making it fun. So it is about not making it a chore. It is, trying to embrace it, realizing the absolute power it could have for your business in terms of growth and clients and repeat business and things like that. So, yeah, I think, one of the things is to try and find the fun in marketing and then you'll do it more often.
Yes. Maybe we could rename it so, we can get rid of that fear of, oh my goodness, it's marketing and it's hard, because it's not. It's just, it's about getting yourself out there to connect with people and let's make it feel easy. Let's make it feel light and inspiring, which I think brings us into a bit about our topic today. We're really going to dive into why 4 out of 5 businesses fail. And, Jen has many, many years in the coaching space working with small businesses. So I know that this is a topic you know a lot about. It's very dear to your heart. So Jen, tell us a little bit about this stat. Where does it sort of come from and what do you see are the main driving factors in this actually happening? Because that is a lot, isn't it? 4 out of 5 is 80%.
Yeah, it's huge. And admittedly, that's a pre-pandemic stat. I don't even know if it can get higher than that, really. What, 4.8% of businesses? I don't know how it would go. But it's a staggering statistic considering Australia rides on the back of small businesses. Like if you look up how many small businesses there are in Australia, there's basically, I think 94% of the workforce is employed by a small business, and small businesses are classified as people who have under 20 employees. So to think of the amount of people that are going into business and then folding, and like, I'm sure you've seen the trends as I have, like in the last couple of years, there's been a huge amount of startups because, they've either lost their jobs or they have figured out that corporate world's not for them, just like we figured out once upon a time and went and started their own businesses. So the statistic is massive. But at the end of the day, I guess, as in real life, we never really fail. We just learn some really hard lessons. And I think one of the biggest lessons for anyone who is struggling in small business is just how burnout you can get in business. And I really think it's the burnout that fails people rather than the fact that they're not good at what they do or they're not good at the business that they're doing. Perhaps they're not as good at marketing as what they are at doing their business. So they're not as good at marketing as they are making these beautiful things or selling this great product or that sort of thing. And so it's kind of that marketing element that fails them. And therefore, as I say, they fail to get enough people to buy enough products to come back often enough to basically make being in business for themselves profitable or worth it. So then they go, of course, and get a job or, go and get themselves a job because they know that that is going to be income for them that's regular. So I think it's more around business owners burn out. 4 out of 5 small businesses burn out rather than fail. Because, in any aspect of my life, like I said, I don't really believe in failure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's sort of, stopping. If you decide to stop, then yes, your business, you've made a choice though to stop doing it. And I know that, if you're listening and maybe you've experienced that, then you might feel like there is no choice. You've got to a point where you don't have a choice, that it's there. And that's certainly something that can happen. And when we're looking at, what could we do differently so that we don't get to that point where there is nothing else that you can do? Because yes, burning out, stopping, it's not working. Well, it's not the actual business. What I'm hearing you say, it's not that you've got a bad idea. It's not that you've got a bad product. It's not that your service isn't any good. It's probably just that you're missing some of those crucial business elements. Maybe you've been spending all your time on designing your product and getting it produced and not actually thinking about, well, how am I going to sell it? Or, the same with service providers. I find it's like, well, what can I do to make some money? What service could I offer? And, being led by the market here, there, and everywhere, and then finding it's actually really hard to keep that going, because then you're working with clients and how are you getting new ones, because you don't then have the energy and time to be out there finding them, because you need to spend all your time working. So,
Yeah, it's that classic working on your business, not in your business. Working in your business, not on your business. It's that classic. And you are so right. Like, people will spend so much time in design and production, and all of a sudden they've got this product and they're like, oh, now I have to sell it. Okay, how am I going to do that? And for some people, if you don't surround yourself with the right people, which is another key element to being successful in business, is surrounding yourself with the right people. If you surround yourself with the wrong people, then you might go, oh, wow, everyone's doing Instagram Reels. I might do Instagram Reels because that's clearly the marketing that's working. But your product, your ideal client is actually on LinkedIn and isn't on, looking at Instagram Reels at all. And you're like, well, I'm doing this marketing and no one's buying my product. And it's just like, well, you haven't really thought about the basics of, who your target audience is or where they hang out and things like that. You're just kind of surrounding yourself with the wrong people and following trends, which is why it's so important to have a business coach, whether that is someone you pay or someone you follow or someone you listen to. At the end of the day, we all want to get to the point where we can afford to have a business coach in our corner with us, but that's not the reality for a lot of startups. But it is all about surrounding yourself with that right person, the people that are going to give you the right advice to do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And it's so, I think that we sing from the same song sheet, you and I, because I think I go on and on and on about, I feel like I do. It's what we call a difference between the hot air tactics. That is what you see people doing, and actually what we're calling the basics, your foundational strategy, the bit behind the scenes that you're missing. And you can get burnt out trying to follow all the people doing the things, like creating the reels. Oh, they're posting 5 times a day. Maybe that's what I need to do instead of posting once. Or I need to be on 3 different platforms and I need a podcast. I need this and I need that. No, just stop for a minute, because that's how you burn yourself out. That's how you
this is how 4 out of 5 businesses fail in the first 5 years.
Totally. Let's just get a grip for a minute. It can be way more simple. It's just take a moment to step back and get that foundation in place. Get really clear, like you said, who it is you're marketing to, where are they, what is it, what's that one thing? And this is the other thing I find, especially in the first few years, people are so kind of desperate to get their business going and successful that they're like, okay, whatever I can do, I'm just going to put it out there and try to sell it. And it's like, if you just focus on one thing, let's just take a breath and go, one core offer that's your main thing, focus on that. Find the clients for it, get it in place, get it working, get people, that's way easier than trying out 10 different things, segmenting yourself into all these different portions. It's like you're trying to build all of these different bridges all at the same time. None of them are finished. None of them are working. No wonder you get burnt out. No wonder. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? And it's just that we're kind of trying to leap over that core piece that is actually what makes it work. You don't even need social media if you don't want to be on it. You can have a very successful business without it. So it's not about the things you're doing. It's actually about your strategy that's behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding your crowd. I forget the story. I forget who tells the story about, what's the number one thing a restaurant needs? And the answer is a starving audience. Like, to be successful in a restaurant, you need a hungry audience, because they're the ones that are going to come and buy your food. So it's sort of working out, where's your hungry audience? I've got a gorgeous private client that I've had for quite some time now. She doesn't even have a website. She's, a retailer. She doesn't have have a website. And she does turns over millions of dollars. So because she's found her crowd, she's found her tribe, she's found the people that, will buy from her. So it's not it's exactly as you were saying, people can have a successful business without social media. They can have one without a website. Not that I'm necessarily advocating for that, but, it is working out what works for you rather than just following trends or following crowds and taking those foundations. I remember, so my career started in law and then I moved from law into retail. My best friend and I, as my story goes, we had way too much wine to drink one night and we decided to throw in our jobs and buy a retail store. I still really don't quite understand why, but I do understand why, because it set me on this trajectory. Because when I was in law, I didn't know the first thing about marketing. As a retailer, you have to learn marketing really quickly. But I remember having a mentor and a business coach. And for, I would say 18 months, I would sit in the room and he would talk about ideal clients and things like that. And I used to think, oh, really? I don't need to know that. And it never really struck me. And then all of a sudden one day it just all clicked. I was like, I get it now, which I guess, is that old principle, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it's kind of, so if you're listening to this and you've heard people talk about ideal clients before and what you want to be famous for and that, and you think, oh, I've done that. But have you? And did you do it before the pandemic? Because I know I've changed, as far as my, as a consumer, I've changed a lot in the last 2 years. So there's every chance that your ideal client has changed as well. And it's time to revisit these foundations.
Oh, so good. That's so true. And I often find that I have this conversation a lot, niching, ideal client, that's one of my things. And I find people say, yeah, I know my ideal client, they're small businesses. And I was like, well, did you realize that in Australia alone, 97% of businesses are small businesses? That's 4.5 million businesses. Are they really all your ideal client? Or are you just using that word ideal flippantly? Come on, let's get serious. Ideal doesn't mean anyone who can possibly buy from you. You might have a service or a product that you're like, well, every business needs accounting, or every business needs marketing, every business needs this, or every person needs shoes. I've got something that everybody needs. That doesn't mean that we're all your ideal client, though, because let's take it down. We're just at that surface level. Let's go more detailed. And it's the people who take the time. It is a process. You need to peel back those layers to dive into, well, okay, what kind of shoes is it that I'm offering and why? And what do the people value? What do I value? What is it that we're connecting on with that similar outlook so that they're going to see me as the right fit? Little pun there with the shoes, but didn't mean that to happen. But it's the same with the services. It's you might do something that's generic as in bookkeeping or accounting, but you're going to have some types of businesses that you're a way better fit for than others because you really get them and you've got similar values and, your style of how you work and how you will do that service is going to be different to other people. And it's about getting to that level of detail and specificity that will make it work.
It is. And I think we are prime examples of this. Two marketers talking on a podcast for the second time. We are both someone looking over the top might think we're competitors, but we live in a world of abundance. You will attract your people. I will attract my people. And then other marketers will attract their people. So it really is that exact same thing that, there is room for everybody in the marketplace and not everybody is your ideal client. And frankly, I don't want to work with everybody. I have no time.
Oh, exactly. And it's so much easier when you are clear because you can just ignore all of those ones who are not and focus on the ones who you really want to bring in. And when you're having conversations on that much deeper level, it's much more natural. You've got so much more passion and energy because you're not trying to make sure you're not putting somebody off who's, potential buyer. When you're worried about that, then your messaging gets so bland and generic. It's kind of well, yeah, but no one's really loving it. It's like you're going to the ice cream shop. Oh, we all like a bit of vanilla, but if there's something more exciting there, then we'll be like, oh, no, I've got to have that exciting one.
Which kind of brings us right round to where we started as to why 4 out of 5 businesses fail in the first 5 years, because they burn out because they're trying to market to everybody.
Yeah. So would you say there's any type of business that you see that gets themselves more into this place where they're really struggling? Or do you think it's sort of across the board and it's more about the person's mindset going into their business and how they're approaching it?
I think it is a real mixture of all of that. I really do feel like it is a mindset thing. It's a lack of research before they start. So just, some people are incredibly talented at doing things or designing things or making things. But just because you've got the talent, like where is your person? Where is your buyer going to be? Where do you find those buyers? I do find, and I'm sorry if I get in trouble for this, but I do find that a lot of retailers sit in this space. I work with service-based businesses and retail-based businesses. And I do find that service-based businesses probably have a different mindset at the startup stage. Maybe it's because they have to think about their offerings a lot more rather than I make amazing candles and everyone needs a candle in their house. And it's just like, yeah, they do. But who are your people? Because you have a lot of competitors out there. So what makes you stand out from the crowd? So I do find that I have a lot more of these conversations at a surface level with retail startups than I do with service-based startups.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think when I've worked with people, in their early stages as well, it can be, they might start out with a bit more clarity, but then they start second guessing themselves and start doubting. And I see this particularly where it's a service that maybe is not necessarily connected straight away to money. So there might be some form of life coach, success, confidence, they help people to get out there. But then they're like, I'm just seeing the only people making money out there are the people who help a business to make more money. So then, they start kind of morphing themselves into a type of business coach when actually their real expertise is in, how to speak really well or how to get that self-confidence. And it's like, yes, there is always that ripple effect to money, but they then start sort of morphing themselves and they become less clear about what their place is in the market, and they start sort of emulating all this other stuff that's going on. And I can see it happening. It's really, really hard to rein in because they're like, but I've got to promise those things. I'm like, yes, although if you just get really clear on what it is that you do, you're going to be speaking much more clearly to that person's need and, what your client is struggling with right now. They will see the ripple effect of it and you can talk to it, but you can actually just hone in on where your genius is and not start promising them the whole world that you're going to fix everything in their life when they get this one thing sorted.
Yeah, I think we all suffer from FOMO, the fear of missing out to a certain degree. And I think that really does exactly what you're saying, skew us. Just like, I'm over here, but look at that bright, shiny object over there. Maybe I should be over there too. So I really, I do. I think bright, shiny objects and the fear of missing out, the FOMO, I guess with good grounding, that's when you can kind of bring yourself back. I think, I don't know about you, Jess, but I chase bright, shiny objects and then I find myself laying in bed that night going, right, now you did that today. Now, that was a bit silly. Tomorrow, you go back on track. Like, you can't chase that bright, shiny object again tomorrow. That's not, it's not within your goal list. So stop. So we all get attracted to these things, but I guess it's having that purpose and having those goals where we go, radio, come back. That's not going to help.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such a simple one that I love to help my clients say, right, what is the goal? And then what is your shorter term goal? So, for the next 90 days, what is it that we're doing in the business that's helping you achieve your bigger goal? And then I want you to ask yourself every time you have the idea, anytime something's come across your world, is this helping me to achieve that goal in this next 90 days? Because 90 days isn't a very long time. It's 3 months. If you're adding in all this extra stuff that's not aligned, then you're literally preventing yourself from achieving what you have said that you want to achieve in that time. And it doesn't mean that the idea is not good. It doesn't mean that it's not a great opportunity, but you've really got to make that decision so carefully if you're going to divert yourself away from the path that you've created, which is why it's essential to have the path, right? Otherwise, I see people without those, with just sort of that big vision. And then because it's such a big vision and long term, it's so easy to kind of have a winding track and to kind of go down tangents and off path, which is why I like to set also the shorter goals and to see the roadmap of how they're getting you to the bigger goal, because that's really, it helps. I'm that person too. I have to rein myself in all the time. Like you said, I'm like, way too many ideas. I could easily fill my day, and
incredibly.
But you've got to go, well, okay, it's good, but just not right now, right?
Yeah, that's right. What's that saying? You can have everything you want, you just can't have it all at once. So some ideas just need to be parked. My mentor always had these 3 words that I have a massive love-hate relationship, and they are for what purpose. So every time I go off on a tangent or I come up with a bright, shiny idea, and it's like, for what purpose, Jen? And if I can answer that properly, then I get to do it. But if I can't, I need to go, yep, no, that's right. I don't know what the purpose of that would be. Can't do it. I have to park that idea. But yeah, those 3 words, just like, they talk about having people on your shoulders. I have 3 words on my shoulders, and that's what they are. And they keep me on the straight and narrow.
Oh, that's so good. So what would you think like the warning signs are, if somebody's listening and, they're still in the bit where they're busy, they're excited, they can kind of see it all happening, but then, might be at risk of reaching that point of burnout, and maybe the business, we might say, well, maybe one business has to end, maybe they start another one. So it ends up being a learning, and, every fail, like there is a learning. But if we can avoid it, if we can avoid getting to that point where all this effort that we're putting in is to no avail, what would you say is, how do you recognize that you're heading towards that? How do we pull back? What should we do? What's that solution?
Yeah, I guess for me, some of the warning signs are I need help, like that internal dialogue of, I think I need help. And I think it's just so much easier now to get that help, whether it is surrounding yourself with the right people, or whether it is getting a virtual assistant or a personal assistant or something. Like I resisted getting a virtual assistant for many years. And in fact, if you go back probably 6 years, I probably didn't even know what a virtual assistant was, and I've kind of had to learn what a virtual assistant is. And now I have 2 of them. But I got to that stage where I'm like, oh, I need help, but who am I going to ask? And I guess, again, it's that, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And when I was getting to the point of burnout and wanting help, I saw a post up on social media from a lady I knew. So it's like, I'm thinking about starting a virtual assistance business. And I'm like, you're perfect because you don't have any preconceived ideas. I don't know what I'm wanting or doing. So I hired her for 5 hours a week. Like it was like what I thought I could afford at the time. And so I just went in small. So I think it's like, as a small business owner, quite often we're very reluctant to ask for help. We think that we should know it all. We should have all the answers. And again, like if you surround yourself with the right people, that that's not the reality because, I think about my mum's group the first day I went to, new mothers group. And, it's just like, why isn't my child sleeping properly or feeding properly? And the whole room's like, yes, I know. Why isn't mine? And it's the same with business. You get in a room of great business owners and you find that your problems are often shared and the solutions are often shared. So some of it is, reaching out to people, asking for help, surrounding yourself with the right people, and really just giving yourself credit for how far you've come. We're kind of entering into awards season at the moment for small business owners. And I love awards as a marketing strategy, but I also love them because it makes you reflect how far you've come. And I think as small business owners, we forget to celebrate the small stuff. We want to celebrate the big stuff, the big milestones, but sometimes just opening the door is a small little victory for that day, or, being able to do your marketing for that week is a small victory. And, we need to be able to celebrate that small stuff as well, because all of that small stuff adds up to when we get to a crisis point going, I can do this. I just need help, or I just need a break or something. What do you see as that sort of what you would recommend at that breaking point? or not even at the breaking point, before the breaking point.
Before that, yes. One big thing, which I'll touch on in a moment, but just as you were saying, when you get to that bit where it's feeling so hard, the thing is that if you can keep going, usually the breakthrough comes after the breakdown, right?
Right, yes.
And so, I think that it's like, if it's really just that you're tired and burnt out, rest. Like, you don't have to give it all away. Just rest and reflect. And that brings me to the other thing that, was what was coming up for me as you were talking. I think most simply, if you could take anything away from this as well today, think about what you can do, is to just be tracking some simple numbers. I'm not a massive numbers person. You do have to get me to sit down and wrap me over the knuckles, stop doing the stuff that you love and actually just look at the stats, but they tell such a story. And I have a very simple, high-level number of stats that I ask my clients to track every month, because it tells a story of what you need to look at. And I think that this, failure, the feeling of failure, comes from a feeling that we have, like an emotion that's usually based on that energy, maybe that energy, the lack, you're feeling like you're grinding, nothing's happening. Like you say, we might not be acknowledging what we have achieved. We might not be appreciating where we're at, and we might be comparing our, 1 month or 1 year business to someone else's 10-year business and feeling like we're not at that stage. Well, of course we're not. You've got to appreciate what you have done and where you've got to, and then be listening to ourselves. And so I feel like creating that awareness is about where you're really at. Like, what are the numbers? Is your social media working or not? Well, you might say it's not working, but if you're looking at your stats and you're seeing, well, actually it's growing by 20% every month. Well, actually that is working. Is it working to the level that you want it to be? Everything can be improved, but when you can look and see, your basic marketing funnel in numbers, what is my audience number? What are my leads? What are my sales? Where is the block in my funnel? Where is it stopped? That then gives you okay, well, that's the bit I need to focus on. It's not everything. It's not the whole business is a disaster. It might be, I'm not getting enough people in the tops. There's not enough falling through, but the conversion rate is good. Or actually, I'm getting people in the audience, but no one's taking the next step. Well, then okay, that's where I need to put some focus on. So simple, very simple, high-level numbers. I think that would be the thing where you can really self-discover where is the problem, and then focus on it so you can move forward and avoid that place of burnout, disaster.
Yeah, such a great recommendation, because like you say, if you can find the block, you can find where some of the marketing activity needs to live as well to get rid of that block. If you haven't got enough people at the top of the funnel, then the marketing to a certain degree stays at the top of the funnel to get more people in. If it's conversion, then that's very different marketing to, just trying to get numbers through the funnel. So yeah, the numbers tell you a story, like you say, they can really help your business.
And they're so simple. You think about someone saying, I'm spending all this time on social media and it's not working. It's like, well, what are you expecting from it? Oh, well, my audience isn't growing. It's like, but if you're just posting on your own accounts all the time, you're essentially engaging with the same people. If you're relying then on hashtags or something to grow your audience, that's a really long, hard, slow way to grow an audience. So what is your expectation versus what is it that you're actually doing? And do you have a good handle on where these pieces fit in your strategy, in your funnel? And really, if you're trying to grow the audience, then what are you doing to get in front of new people? And that's not just posting on your own social media accounts, because that's kind of going to be a hard way to do it, isn't it? When you look at it like that, you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. But yet that's what I see most people doing. And then saying it's not working. Well, it is working, as in you're doing it, you're engaging with people, but you're just engaging with the same people. So that's why it's not growing.
Yeah. And I think also, this is probably a completely different tangent to where we started, but you take social media, for instance, you've really got to have a look at your own habits with social media. How often are you on Instagram and you're scrolling? You're not leaving love. You're not leaving comments. The same on TikTok or the same on Facebook or LinkedIn. And then you're, as a business owner, expecting people to like and comment on yours, but that's not a habit you've got. So sometimes, and I find it in my business, and I'm sure you find it, you have this person come out of the woodwork and go, I'd like to work with you. And you're like, who are you? I've never seen you before. You've never liked anything. I've never had a conversation with you and not a DM, but they've been following silently in the background. They've been checking you out. They've been looking at your content. So they're in that reach statistic, but they're not in the engagement statistic, because that's the way we use social. You know, even myself, I was like, oh goodness, I haven't left a comment for 5 minutes. Better scroll back up and start, leaving comments and leaving some love. But that's the way we are. So sometimes getting hung up on too many stats is not a good thing, because they don't actually reflect necessarily whether you are doing a good job or a bad job.
Yes. And that brings us back to what we were saying before, really knowing your ideal client is then being in their shoes. Well, if your ideal client are mums who are really busy, they might be scrolling the feed while they're sitting on the floor of their child's bedroom, waiting for their kid to go to sleep at night. Like they might just be doing that. They're looking, they're watching, but they've got the sound off. So, again, if you're posting reels or content that don't have captions, they might be seeing it and not hearing it. You need to know who your people are and what their habits are likely to be. I know people go, but how do I know? It's like, well, put yourself in their shoes, describe them, and then imagine, okay, if I am them, I assume them, hopefully maybe you were them in a past life. Remember what it was like. Like, are you just on the fly? You're doing things quickly. You might not be engaging in that way. It doesn't mean that you're not seeing it. Yes. It's just understanding it. Then you can kind of stop worrying so much, because it's like, well, the people are there. The reason I get why they're not engaging. So, I have my phone on silent all the time. So I know when I do my content, I'm really conscious about putting captions on, for example, because I'm like, well, my audience are just like me. They probably aren't listening to me. I hope they do sometimes. I hope they come onto the podcast, but they're probably more likely to listen to a podcast than to have their social media feed, with the sound on. At least that's, my habit. So I try to go like, well, okay, I've got to create things that are going to work for them as well, and be that's who I'm creating it for. And then not to worry about what other people are saying, you have to have X amount of engagement or whatever. It's like, well, it really depends, doesn't it?
It does.
On your ideal client.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so true. We've talked about the solution. We've talked about who is more susceptible or not. When 4 out of 5 businesses fail, it seems like a big number. And so probably, if you're listening, maybe you've had one fail and you're in your second business. What are we bringing forward from that experience? What do you think that somebody should be looking back at and not maybe seeing it as so much as a failure, but what can we bring forward from that experience to now to learn from it?
I would hope that most people who have the capacity to be a small business owner also have the capacity to look back and look for the lesson. Like, no matter what you do in your life, whether it's daily, I'm always looking for the lesson. Something might happen and I'm grumpy about it, and I'll go and I'll put some dishes away, or I'll be grumpy. And then all of a sudden it's like, there's the lesson. All right, I got it. No worries. Back to work I go. And so I think we've always sort of got to be looking for that lesson. What is the lesson? And unfortunately, I think for a lot of small business owners who have perhaps had a business that has failed, and I use that in inverted commas because you don't really fail, it is the marketing. They failed to do enough marketing to attract enough people, to buy enough product, to come back often enough, to be profitable enough to stay in business. They perhaps concentrated too much on the being inside the business and not enough of being the business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's rather harsh, isn't it? But I really do think, it is true. And I don't mean to sound so flippant about it, because that is a massive lesson to learn. But at the end of the day, marketing plays a massive role in the success of a business.
Yeah, well, if you don't have clients, you don't have a business. So it is essential for that reason. And you don't have to, think that you need to be a marketer or you need to go off and do some sort of marketing qualification. It's not that hard. It's communication, really, when we get down to it.
Yeah, it is. I know some really successful businesses and their marketing is all word of mouth, referral-based marketing. So they don't actually have to do a lot of other marketing other than to do a really great job, encourage people to give them referrals, and encourage word of mouth. Like, it can be as simple as that, or it could be as complex as a whole big strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that something I find people who, maybe haven't come from the background and they're thinking marketing strategy, even marketers say to me, oh, it feels so hard and complicated and big and it's this great big thing. And I'm like, well, let's stop thinking about it like that. And let's actually just break it down to 3 simple things. Get clear on who you're targeting, get clear on what it is you're selling, and then just create that journey. So it's 3 things. Well, how is someone going to go from being a stranger to being your customer? What are the things you're going to choose to do to help them get there? Because if we're just sitting back waiting for someone to appear, that might have worked back in the 80s. Build it and they will come. Sometimes that works. That's not actually a strategy though. So
no, what is it? Yeah. Crossing your fingers is not a strategy.
No. So we need to be doing something to be connecting with people and bringing them into our business, but it doesn't have to be everything. We don't have to subscribe to all that stuff that we're seeing out there. And I think that only have to get on Instagram and get overwhelmed by all the different advice that you're getting and all the different things that people are like, you have to be doing this, you've got to be doing that. It's like, just stop and breathe. And if you are feeling like you're in that rabbit, or hamster running on the wheel and you're doing all the stuff and it's just crazy, you're going nowhere, it's a sign to stop and step back, get some awareness, reflect, and then choose something that does feel good for you. Because if you're more aligned with yourself, then you are going to find it's easier and
hopefully fun.
And fun, yeah. So, yes. That's really great. Thank you so much, Jen. Do you have any final tips or words of advice for people today?
No, I think that I've kind of repeated my advice a couple of times. Marketing does have to be a priority. It can't be a sometimes activity. And sort of exactly what you were saying, thinking about the 3 big things: who your ideal client is, what you want to be famous for, where these people hang out. But my biggest piece of advice, and probably the biggest thing that has helped me grow several amazing businesses, is surrounding myself with the right people. So whether they're coaches or whether they're people just like me, but I often say, I play tennis a lot better when I play with someone who's better than me than someone who's not as good as me. I'm much better at leveling up than bringing people up with me when it comes to tennis. So, surround yourself with the people who are perhaps 2 maybe steps ahead of you and that you can learn from. And when I say surround yourself, you don't have to know them. You can follow them online. You can, listen to their webinars. You can meet them in real life, but also having that good base around you, because I know my husband, my mum, my dad, I think they'd be flat to explain what I do every day. They don't get it. They're not in my world. They support me, but they don't get it. So I've got to go to external places to get that, have those business conversations with people. So if you're not surrounding yourself with people who can listen and talk and give you great advice, then that's probably one of the biggest things you could probably start doing, is looking out for those groups or create one yourself and invite people.
Yeah. So that is more valuable than what you can ever imagine, isn't it? Yeah. Because when it's just all in your head, it's going round and round in circles. And that's when you get to places of overthinking that leads to procrastination. It leads to not doing something. It leads to the doubt. And it all just can pile and pile and pile up when you're doing it alone. And as soon as you get that supportive environment where, people who can lift you up,
people also challenge you. You want someone who will challenge you. One of my best friends is, one of my best business friends as well. And she gives me the look. And as soon as I get the look, I know that I'm talking rubbish or I've gone too far with something. And she's like, nah.
Yes. Yeah. No, exactly. It's you want someone who's kind, but also honest and can help you see your blind spots and point out something that maybe you are not aware of, or maybe that you're ignoring, and help you to see. So yes, such good advice. And we want to see more businesses succeeding and not throwing in the towel and making it through, because it is great, isn't it, when you can be your own boss and you can have what you really want, and I think helping to design it and to actually build something that is what you want and not just a job that's making money is the key to it being something that will last with you.
And being able to see the difference that you're making in other people's lives, whether it is that beautiful candle or whether that is that program that has changed their lives and everything in between. But that's the thrill of being a small business owner, is the change that you can bring others.
Yeah, fantastic. So Jen, if people want to find you and follow you and learn a bit more about what you do, where can they best connect with you?
So unsurprisingly, on the social media platforms. So I'm at Jenn Donovan on most of the platforms, at Jenn Donovan _ on Instagram. But you could probably get to know me the best by coming over and listening to my podcast, which is called Small Business Made Simple, and making sure that you scroll back and check out episode 72, where Jessica and I had another chat, which was actually around naming your business, I think, from memory.
Yes, yeah, it was a big chat about naming your business as your name or as a brand, and one of those crazy decisions we made back in the day. It was a good one, and a good discussion to have. So thank you so much, Jen. I've loved having you here today and sharing your wisdom with us. As always, a pleasure to talk and connect with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been so good.
If you aren't currently attracting the type of clients or work that inspires you, marketing is feeling really hard, and you're still miles away from your income goals, then it's a clear sign your strategy is out of alignment, or maybe there are parts missing altogether. So let's change all that. This month, I'm hosting a live free training called Master Your Marketing, starting on the 23rd of May. And if you come and join me for it, you'll discover how to easily attract the quality clients you really want every month, so that you can smash your income goals and do that within school hours, which is about 20 hours a week. And you'll finally be able to have that flexible lifestyle that you really, really want for your family. Now, I know from my years of experience that marketing can seem really complicated and there's so many different pieces, but we're going to simplify this right down, because for a successful strategy, you really just need 3 key elements aligned. And those are having the right clients, selling them profitable services that they really want, and having a marketing and sales flow that takes them from being strangers to customers in a series of really short or simple steps. Now, we can do all of this without undercharging, giving away services for free, without wasting all your time scouring your socials for leads, sending cold DMs, doing that icky cold pitch that nobody likes doing and nobody likes receiving. So why do people even do that? I don't know. And without wasting money on ads or building complicated funnels. This is all about making marketing simple, and I'm sharing it with you over 3 days. So there's a 3-day series starting May 23. I've got it spread out over the week. So we'll have a day's rest in between, a day to recalibrate, maybe catch up on the replay, ask some questions, even have a think about what we've done on the day before. So it's going to be heaps of fun. They're going to be short sessions. You'll join me online, and that's really it. So if you come to jessicaosborne.com/masteryourmarketing, you can pop your name down on the list right now, save your spot, get access to the live sessions, get access to all the replays, and get access to me in our pop-up Facebook group, so you can jump in there and ask questions and have some extra chat and extra time in between the lines. So I highly recommend it. If you've been finding marketing hard, then let's make it simple. Let's get you to where you want to be by the end of 2022. So again, this is May 23, Master Your Marketing. Go to jessicaosborne.com/masteryourmarketing and come and join me live. It's going to be heaps of fun. Totally free, so there's really no reason not to do it, except if you don't have a problem with marketing. If you're already getting all the right clients and everything's rosy, then hey, you probably don't need this training. But if you would like better quality clients more consistently and to have a much easier, more effortless time attracting them, then this is the training that you need to be attending. So I hope to see you there. Let's get into it.